So we're here to talk about the country of Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe had a humanitarian moment. Well, not humanitarian. Zimbabwe had a very bad moment for its people recently. So Zimbabwe, to give you some background on this story. So Zimbabwe, a country located in the south of Africa. I'm not very well versed in Zimbabwean history and intricacies of its politics, so this is mostly based off 3 articles that I read about the current situation that is unfolding with the attempted protests. So some background on the country. It is currently in a very serious economic crisis. There's inflation running at over 700% currently in the country, and there's shortages of foreign currency. People are short on supplies like food, and public hospitals are crippled by strikes and lack of medicine. So the general situation in Zimbabwe is not good for the people. And the Zimbabwean authorities have recently increasingly arbitrarily arrested critics of the government, according to the Human Rights Watch. And of course, we know that arresting critics of the government is usually a really bad sign. Like, it's really bad. It's not a good thing. So on July 20th, so last month, the police arrested and detained Hopewell Chinono, an award-winning journalist, and Jacob Ngarivhume, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, leader of the political group Transform Zimbabwe. So both of them were detained, both of them were denied bail and remain in custody at the moment. They have been accused of inciting public violence against the government. Chinono and Ngarivhume had helped expose high-level corruption in Zimbabwe, and they also called for a nationwide anti-corruption protests on July 31st. And then on the eve of these anti-corruption protests on July 30th, security forces raided the house of Mduduzi Matutu, a prominent journalist and editor of the online newspaper ZimLive in Bulawayo. Failing to find him, they arrested his 3 nephews, Tawanda Muchehiwa, 22, Advent Matutu, 25, and Amendlekosi Matutu, 19. The security agents also detained Matutu's sister, Nomagugu Matutu, to compel him to turn himself in, but released her hours later. Advent Matutu was charged with incitement of public violence after allegedly being found with flyers saying Mnangagwa and his cabinet must resign. So that is the current president, but was freed by a court. So this is like really, really bad stuff. Government officers coming to your home, not finding you and arresting your family on pretty baseless. Like, those are baseless arguments. If you have flyers saying like this politician should resign, like that's not illegal. It shouldn't be illegal. There's nothing bad. I mean, it's a differing opinion. That's it. Like, this is really bad. So according to the Zimbabwe chapter of the Media Institute of Southern Africa, they emailed Human Rights Watch that the security agents dropped off Matutu's nephew Muchehiwa at his home on August 1st, so that is last week, at about 10 p.m. The group said that he had been tortured by alleged security agents, resulting in serious injuries. According to medical documents reviewed by Human Rights Watch, Muchehiwa was assaulted with a wooden log and sprayed with an unknown substance all over his body. He suffered extensive bruises, an acute kidney injury, and post-traumatic stress disorder. This is absolutely terrible. The government kidnapping you. This is kidnapping. This is nothing short of kidnapping. The government kidnapping you and then torturing you and then throwing you back to your home is authoritarian. This is a fascist move. This is nothing but fascism. These are acts of fascism. This should never happen in any country to anyone. This is absolutely terrible. horrible. So, moving on to the week of July 27th, when the president of Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa, imposed an overnight lockdown which restricted free movement. This was to combat COVID-19, according to the president, but he was criticized for this because he did it so short, with such short notice, and because it limited people's free movement. So then on July 31st, the day of the protest, soldiers and the police arrested and briefly detained a lawyer, Obe Shava, and his 3 clients, activists Joanna Mamombe, Cecilia Chimbiri, and Netsai Marovato, as they drove to Harare Central Police Station. Harare is the capital of Zimbabwe. They were driving there to report in as required under their bail agreement. So the police stopped the 3 activists on May 13th at a checkpoint in Harare and allegedly abducted, tortured, and sexually assaulted them. So on top of this, the police did all of this to them. Now they have to go back to the police, which is... And they were on their way back to report in as they were supposed to, and they were arrested and detained. It doesn't make any sense. Shava, a member of the Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights, told Human Rights Watch that I complied with all the instructions they, the security forces, gave, that notwithstanding I was ordered to lie down on the ground. My client, Chimbiri, was assaulted and molested in my presence. I felt helpless, says Shava, the lawyer. Chimbiri said that a soldier tore off her top and brassiere and fondled her. Chimbiri was later charged with disorderly conduct in public place, even though the security forces had assaulted her. Fucking ridiculous. Absolutely terrible that the police would do this is not a police force. Well, I mean, it is a police force because fuck the police. But this is beyond horrible. This is beyond terrible. We shouldn't be seeing this in the world anywhere. It's pure fascism. It's ugly. I don't like it. That's awful, Deoda. Yes, I agree. It's terrible. It's worse than awful. And I agree. And especially that this is being... So what really tips this off as a fascist move is that these police attacks, harassment, unlawful, unethical actions are targeted at activists. So people who are speaking against a fascist regime, and they are being hit hard because of said speaking up. That is not what a democratic country should do. This is what a fascist country does. A fascist regime does, sorry. It's terrible. And, strength to them. So then we get to the day of the protest. So, July 31st. On the previous day, the police had warned anyone attending would only have themselves to blame. Quote. That was only have themselves to blame. Quote. While President Emerson Mnangagwa denounced the planned rallies as, quote, an insurrection to overthrow our democratically elected government, end quote. Those are also not the words of a democratic person. Those are the words of a fascist. We have heard words like this before. And no doubt we will hear words like this later down the line as well. So then on July 31st, in the Zimbabwean capital of Harare and the city of Bulawayo, protesters attempted to take to the streets to protest against the alleged corruption and the country's weak economy, which I mentioned before. But they were stopped by hundreds of soldiers and police officers who were deployed to prevent the outlawed demonstrations. If you're not able to peacefully protest, then that is a terrible, terrible sign. So from the actions of the police, businesses were shut down and streets were deserted so security forces could patrol and stop these protesters. So it's fucking terrible. At least 11 people were arrested on July 31st. I mentioned previously some people, but these 11 include award-winning author Titi Dangaremga, who called for the release of investigative journalist Hopewell Chinono, who we talked about, and she was charged with incitement to commit violence and breaching anti-coronavirus health regulations after staging a 2-woman demonstration in the capital on Friday, a day of the planned protest against corruption and deepening economic crisis. So she had a two-person protest, demonstration, and she was charged with incitement to commit violence and breaching anti-coronavirus health regulations. Luckily, she was released on bail on August 1st, so the following day, so she is no longer in custody. That is good. Another person who was arrested is Fadsai Mahere, a lawyer and spokesperson for the opposition Movement for Democratic Change Alliance. Also an important thing to note that they are arresting the opposition as well. That is always a very, 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 very bad sign, that it is a very fascist regime. And on August 4th, so that would be, was that Monday? No, Tuesday, sorry. President Emerson Mnangagwa publicly denounced critics in a speech describing them as, quote, dark forces and, quote, a few rogue Zimbabweans and, quote, terrorist opposition groupings. He said, quote, those who promote hate and disharmony will never win. The bad apples that have attempted to divide our people and weaken our systems shall be flushed out. Good shall triumph over evil, end quote. He said nothing about the constitutional rights of Zimbabweans to peacefully protest or the government's domestic and international human rights obligations. And that's where this story ends for now, but of course, the UK Embassy, the US Embassy have spoken out against this. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. So many organizations have spoken out against this, and there is a hashtag currently in social media. It is Zimbabwean Lives Matter. Hashtag Zimbabwean Lives Matter. Currently going on in social media to spread awareness of this, because this hasn't been covered very much in the West. Like, it's been seen very little coverage here in quote-unquote the West, so Europe and US. We haven't really heard much about this, and that's why I wanted to bring some attention to this, because I think this is a terrible situation where a fascist or fascistically leaning government is arresting, detaining, torturing, abusing peaceful protesters, activists, and opposition party members. And that is absolutely wrong. It should not happen and should not be allowed to happen in a democratic country, or in any country for that matter. I mean, this should not be happening. This is wrong, and we definitely need to bring more attention to this, because the more countries that look at this and speak out against this, the more pressure it puts on Zimbabwe to make changes, on President Mnangagwa. So I encourage everyone to tweet about this, post on Instagram or whatever, with the hashtag Zimbabwe Lives Matter, just to spread awareness of this situation. I know it is a bit of a slacktivism kind of thing to use a hashtag, but in this case, spreading awareness, I think, is important so that people know that this thing is happening. But it is a terrible situation that the country finds itself in. You know, the economy is in a terrible situation. People are struggling to survive, to meet basic necessities, and understandably they are angry at their government. This is not the right response to crack down on those people. The right answer would be to try and fix the root problems, which is the terrible economic situation, which I'm sure is a very difficult thing to do. I mean, if it was easy, they would have fixed it already, right? And then for the president to go on and say, like, these are dark forces and stuff like that, like, this is very, very fascist language. I don't like it. And I hope the things get better for the people of Zimbabwe. What has led Zimbabwe to this situation right now with its economy, I don't know. I'm not well versed in the history of Zimbabwe, so I can't say. And probably Europe and the US and other countries have a part to play in all of this due to the colonialization. But yeah, it's a shitty situation, and all the best to the people in Zimbabwe. And for the activists who are fighting against this, like, they're doing very brave work and dangerous work. Stay safe, you know, and keep fighting the good fight.